Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 22nd episode of the Unity or Death podcast. I always say every day is special and every episode is special, but this one is particularly special because I tried to do this show and I invited a whole lot of people, and I had the topic of what I wanted them to come on and talk about. And I was like, let's talk about the GOP backstabbing gun owners. And a lot of people were like, they did what? And I was appalled. I'm like, wait, you guys didn't hear what happened? You didn't hear about how 135 GOP representatives voted for red flag laws and nobody knew. And I was like, what the fuck? So I lost my mind. I had like a meltdown on Twitter, and I brought some of my friends from the 2A community and the Liberty community to just complain and break down like what was actually passed and what actually happened, and just kind of at the universe that nobody's talking about this because this is a big deal. So first off, we have my good boy. How you doing, my man? Inked Anarchist.
Hey.
And then we have Senor Jason. How you doing, my man?
Yo, what is up?
And then the always lovely and apparently a giant corn fan, as we learned today, Miss Lauren Liberty.
What up?
So yeah, to get us right into it, for people that don't know, last week they voted on the NDAA, the giant bill that allows them to spy on us and arrest us without, fucking trial and all those good things. But this year was special because this year included in it was red flag laws, dishonorable discharge to active duty military who refuse to get the jab, and, of course, millions and millions of dollars to Pakistan, Israel, and, all that good stuff. So you think this would be a hot topic of discussion? You think people would care about it? So I'm going to start with Andrew. We can just go around and just get right into it. Did you hear about this from anyone important, or did you find out about yourself?
I actually, I kind of keep tabs on the 2A community as, just a general rule of thumb. So I kind of heard a little bit about it initially myself, and then FPC put out a piece about it and pointed it out. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? That many turncoats out there did that? That many.
And to make it clear too, everybody's like, oh, it's the neocons. Nope. Based Trump Republicans like Matt Gaetz, a lot of the new Liberty Republicans voted for red flag laws last week. Including every single representative from Florida, every single Republican representative from Florida voted for it. Yeah, make Florida, make America Florida, guys.
Yeah, there were a few that I saw quotes from. They're like, well, I only voted for it because it undoes the dishonorable discharge for not taking the vaccine. That's the only reason they voted for it. And they're like, well, we're not going to support it if it has the red flag language in the final edition. Why'd you fucking support it this time then?
You could have taken 135 votes off of it.
Yeah. Well,
but before we go on, Lauren, did you hear about this? Did anyone tell you about this, or did you have to find out about this yourself?
So I actually learned about it from Justin Amash because he tweeted out something really simple, like never vote in favor of the NDAA, and it blew up. So I was like, okay, let me see what was hidden in this. And of course, that's how I found out about the red flag laws. But that was it. If I didn't see that one specific tweet from Justin Amash at that moment, I wouldn't have even really realized.
Yeah, because FPC said something about it. Colion Noir said something about it. And those are the only two popular people. I didn't see anyone with a podcast. I didn't see Dave Smith talking about it. I didn't see anyone referencing the fact that I think this is the first time in history on a federal level a red flag bill passed any form of the government, and no one's talking about it.
They tried to include this exact same bill in last year's NDAA, and it went nowhere last year. It was thrown out in committee, but this year is including that it passed the House. So,
not to sound, I was going to say, not to sound like too crazy or tinfoil hat-ish, but I'm probably going to. It almost seems like nobody really cares because it's aimed at military. Like, it's not aimed at civilians.
Oh, I've heard people in the LP like Cope post that of like, oh, it's nothing to worry about. It's just the military.
Just the military. Do you also think maybe it's like a fuck you to the pretty decent amount of people that are active duty that don't want to take the vaccine, and they have been outspoken about it not being mandatory? Like, I almost feel like it's like a fuck you to them because of that. It's like a repercussion.
It's even worse than that, because it was initially referred to the Committee on Armed Services, and it passed that committee.
Wow.
Before it got added to the House bill.
Your chiefs of staff are fucking traitors too. Surprise, surprise.
Well, and this is a carry on of a trend that we've been seeing where, first you had them trying to force everybody out of the military that wasn't subscribing to the fake woke agenda. And then you have people getting forced out over the vaccines. And now the red flag laws, this is pretty clearly steered to concentrating all of the power in the military to one specific group of people.
And again, like
Scheller's in the brig for asking for accountability.
Yeah, and fucking, people don't understand. It's funny, even the Republicans don't get this, because I know they don't read anything and they're dumb. But they're like, oh, well, we had to vote for the red flag laws because if not, the military could be dishonorably discharged for not getting, the jab. Which, okay, that's fine. But if you go into the DSA, which is, they're the medical journal of mental health and everything like that, which is what they use to base red flag gun confiscation off of, conspiracy theories, video game addiction, and being anti-vax are considered mental health disorders and can get them to red flag your house. So congrats. Instead of dishonorably discharging the military, you'll just get their door kicked in.
Because people who have been dishonorably discharged can come back to haunt you, whereas people that you had murdered in their homes, they are just gone.
Jason, you were saying before this too about how they're going to enforce this, because this is something I didn't even know about, and this is even gross.
Gross. One of the where's my notes? One of the clauses in the bill says that enforcement by civilian authorities and prescribing regulations for military court protective orders, the president shall seek to ensure that the protective orders are issued in a form and manner that is enforceable by state, local, territorial, and tribal civilian law enforcement authorities.
Yeah, and this is a Mobius strip.
Wait, hold on. Two things down for that. It has a reciprocity agreement. So the authorities, or the military authorities, will in turn enforce civilian red flag laws on their members.
Yeah.
So it's a meshing of civilian and UCMMJ.
Yeah, this is a Mobius strip too.
And of course, it gets better. Because civilian judges cannot renew or remove the order. Cannot renew or remove the order. Only UCMMJ approved judges can, and those last for up to 60 days, and they can reissue them if they're not ready to rehear the arguments.
So just leave it on the floor for months, as long as they want to do it.
They don't have to tell people for 30 days.
Yeah, because that's important because a lot of people don't know how red flag logs work. So to break that down really quick, the way a red flag order works is there's a little bit of variance between them, but essentially either a judge or a doctor, depending on the version of it, can go to the police and say that this person is not mentally fit to own a firearm, and then a red flag order will be put. It's not even a warrant. People call it red flag warrants. No, it's a red flag order. You do not get notified of this. You do not get warned of this. You cannot appeal it, and you cannot, and you can only address it after the fact. So essentially, a random judge or a doctor just says, "Take this dude's guns," and then cops show up to your house and knock on the door and say, "Give me your guns," and there's nothing you can do about it.
Wasn't there something about
that's the emergency order? Yeah.
Yeah, isn't there something about innocent until proven guilty? I could swear I heard something to.
Not anymore.
No.
And this whole thing is a Mobius strip, because where it gets really weird is the reason that they want civilians to enforce it is because if that military member is off base, they cannot enforce it because of posse comitatus. So their argument is, well, then therefore the civilian police have to be the ones to enforce it. However, by forcing civilian police to enforce a military order, they are violating posse comitatus. So it's a Mobius strip where they're not violating it by violating it by not violating it by violating it.
And nobody cares. Nobody's talking. It's seriously. I don't know if anybody saw my fucking just bitch fit conniption I threw on Twitter the other night of just like, what is wrong with all of you? I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, no one noticed.
Yeah, and there was just like this wide plethora of, and this is stuff you have to pay attention for, because if there's a unified kind of cope coming from the GOP, then you can kind of assume this is something that actually happened. But every single GOP representative you talk to has a different excuse. A bunch of them were like, we didn't know it was in the bill before we voted on it. And then you had other ones say that, oh, well, we needed to pass it to do the whole thing for the dishonorable discharge. Then you had other people pass, like Matt Gaetz was like, I had to vote on it because this is the best version of the NDAA that's ever been passed. That's actually going to represent American interests. Doesn't remove the spying, doesn't remove the unconstitutional anything wrong in the NDAA. So I don't know what the fuck Matt Gaetz is on, but like I've just heard all these different excuses, and I'm like, that's weird. You know? Yeah,
why? What do they have on them? Like,
right?
Yeah, and Lauren, I don't want to 3-man over you. So Lauren, give me kind of.
How do you know I'm not into that?
Oh,
sorry, I had to. No, I completely agree, and I really. It seems like there's no due process. It's a complete and utter violation of due process. It just doesn't exist. There was one article that I was reading that it said that, and I'm not sure if you had mentioned this yet, but that it's also kind of seeming like it can be issued ex parte, which means like without the person that it's being issued against present.
Mm-hmm.
So that is horrifying. Like they can just bring up these charges against you. They don't have to. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it just, the more you read about it and the more you try to understand it, the more you're like, it's maddening. Why aren't people fucking outraged by this? Why are there not protests about this? Why does nobody care?
Why are we not burning down the house?
It's not only that, but they don't need actual proof of anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, think about the military and how many times you have pissed off ex-wives and things. So
yeah.
Well, yeah, because that's the big thing that like the people are like, why am I so psycho about red flag laws? Because I'm like anti-war red flag. Like that's the two fucking things I'm just insane about. And that's because
is a war.
Right. Yeah. Because if you look at what happened to Duncan, literally Duncan would still be alive today if the Montgomery County Police Department knocked on his door and said, hey, we think you have an illegal firearm. We got a red flag warrant. And then Duncan was like, hey, here's my legal weapon. And then they could look at it and be like, that's not illegal. And then give his gun back and Duncan would be alive today. But no, he wasn't notified. They didn't tell anything. They didn't send a letter or whatever. They came to his house at 3 a.m. and shot him through his fucking window. That's going to happen.
At Waco, they could have arrested David Koresh at any time. I don't know, maybe on his 2-mile jog every morning.
Right.
When
exactly.
He was out and about without his firearm.
Because that's the point of red flag laws. I try to tell people, like the point is to remove a threat. That's why when you see the people that get red flag warranted, they're very weird people. They're not, it's no one who's actually clinically insane, because dealing with actually clinically insane people is easier than dealing with a sane person with a firearm that knows your warrant's bullshit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the last thing you want is somebody who can think critically, somebody who can analyze the situation, somebody who can respond, especially if you're going after people who are currently in the military. You literally spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to get them prepared to fight back against exactly this kind of thing. And now you're going to have a bunch of, and I mean, the thing is too, is now you're going to send a bunch of civilians at these guys, a bunch of civilian cops is who you're going to send at people who have been specifically trained to respond to an armed threat. How is that going to go for you?
Yeah,
and I think it's supposed to go badly.
Yeah. And as Aiden, I don't know about this version of it. I think Maryland, where the Duncan Lemp case, they just need a judge, no doctor, nothing like that. But some other state has it to where you have to have a doctor's order and then go through a judge. So it's different depending on it. But either way, like, it's bullshit. Because there's I think 5 people have died in red flag raids. And I think 2 of them were literally like a pissed off ex-girlfriend or some shit like that, just made a bunch of stuff up. And then the cops just came and killed the person in their house. Which, like, apply. And again, doesn't even have to be an angry girlfriend. Could be a psycho abusive boyfriend. Could be fucking, evil stepmom. Well, anything, bro. Shitty neighbor.
Again, they don't need they don't need proof to remove the firearms or to issue the warrant, issue the order, because all it takes, because there's no due process, right? So you don't have to be found guilty of anything. All it takes is a person saying, "Hey, this person XYZ." And then the judge goes, "Oh, take their guns."
Well, yeah, and that's the thing is a doctor, based on my reading of the bill, or that section of the bill, the doctor does not need to sign off on it. The only real true requirement is that a judge orders it. So it doesn't matter who says anything. They just have to convince one person, the judge, one person, that you may be a danger, and then boom, next thing you know, you're having a flashbang tossed into your living room.
Yeah, your gun rights turn into traffic court essentially, which is great.
You don't have gun rights.
Yeah.
That was how I had read it as well, that it to me seems like it only requires a judge to sign off on it. So
yeah, which again is that's horrifying, especially when it comes to the military, because the military is supposed to be insular with this shit. The military, that's why we have UCMJ and then the Justice Department, and they're separate. But there's a problem, like you said, there's a problem with that, seeming that I think a lot of people also, when it came to the whole like, oh, well, it's just the military, they're thinking just like, oh, these are dudes in like Afghanistan or whatever. No, dude, like you have like computer repairmen that live in like Montana, bro, that are part of the U.S. military.
Well, not only that, but it applies to, because National Guard are members of the. Are members of technically military member, so it applies to National Guard also.
National Guard, which Civilian Air Patrol, the Civil Air Patrol,
Reserves.
Coast Guard. If you're, and on top of that too, there's some murkiness to it, because occasionally the UCMJ gets applied to military spouses, occasionally it doesn't, occasionally it gets applied to the children of military, occasionally it doesn't, occasionally it gets applied to civilian contractors who are working for the military, and occasionally it doesn't. So who knows who's going to be subject to this and who they can argue should be subject to this at this point.
Right. Like,
it's not being applied to the Taliban in Afghanistan, though.
No, we give them weapons. That's why they have better
right.
But yeah, it's like, sorry, Maureen. Your husband said you were crazy. So your military spouse. So we're going to send fucking goons to the house to confiscate any firearms your husband left behind. Like, imagine the thousands of just stupid, idiotic scenarios you could fucking come up with your head. And probably 100 times more than that we could even imagine. And again,
sorry 20-year-old kid, the stripper you met the other night says you hit her. We're gonna take your guns.
Right. No trial, no warrant. Like nothing.
So I think this highlights a really big issue with omnibus bills, right? Because how often do you see it, even down on a local level? You see it on when you go to vote, all these things. Like here in Arizona, they had some bullshit. I don't even remember what it was. And they tied that in with the marijuana. The proposition was like, okay, so we have all these people that we know they want to, decriminalize cannabis, and we'll throw something else in with it. So that gets passed along with it.
Yeah. Writers are a terrible,
and every time anybody in Congress tries to propose like some sort of an anti-poison pill law, something that would forbid the ability to add things that have nothing to do with the remainder of the bill, every single time that gets proposed, it never makes it out of committee. It just gets shot down immediately, because if you look at the U.S. criminal code, how many things in the U.S. criminal code are stuck in really weird places where you're like, that has nothing to do with like agricultural bills that have laws on various like industrial machinery, or, some sort of law that, that has something to do with like education that also happens to have a rider about drugs.
Yeah, the most recent example is the infrastructure bill.
Having
a requirement that by 2024 all cars have to have a breathalyzer in them. And
literally what I was gonna say, to the T. Yes, it's just, and that is just one of, and those are like, these bills are, upwards of 3,000 pages long. So who's reading them? Nobody.
The NDAA is like 1392.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like this is very deliberate because
Yes.
two parts to this. So first off, with this bill, Massey voted against it. And that gives you a reason why they do these omnibus bills, because then all over the fucking news, Thomas Massey was trending on Twitter. Anti-Semitic Thomas Massey. He doesn't want to give money to Israel. And Thomas Massey was like, no, fuck red flag laws. Like, that's why I voted no on it. It has nothing to do with Israel. I'm not voting for red flag laws. And you can go, and so you could even go to that, to where with the police brutality things, Rand Paul put forth a bill that would ban no-knock raids. And then there was another bill, I think it was
Taylor
like,
law.
the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act. And then there was another bill that was, I think it was like H216 or something like that. I don't remember. But essentially all it did was stop federal funding and federal equipment to local law enforcement. Both of those died in committee, but the Justice for George Floyd bill is getting voted on. That's a giant omnibus bill that includes all of these fucking weird funding programs and all this weird shit and everything like that in it. And it's like, oh... they don't care about the issue. They just want to attach bullshit to it so they can get their little pet projects passed off of someone dying. It's like, God damn it.
Well, yeah, and it's not unreasonable to ask that if you're going to be voting on a bill, that bill, one, is short enough to actually be read by a human being, and two, that bill only has to do with the things that bill is supposed to have something to do with. That's not unreasonable, but it's fought against over and over and over again, and rabidly so. And I think that, I mean, like the last time anybody tried that, there was like a huge public relations campaign by the opposing side, like trying to smear this guy that was trying to propose this. Like, this is a constant thing. And the question is, why are they so against this idea that maybe the law that you're passing should only contain things about that issue?
Yeah, okay, for shits and giggles, I just looked this up. The the NDAA is 1,392 pages. The Lord of the Rings book series is 1,178.
Right.
And it's obtuse token is Tolkien. It's probably more readable than the fucking government bill.
Yes.
And
yes.
I forget what bill it was. I think it was like a year or two ago, but they literally put it on their table. I think it was like 24 hours before it had to be voted on. And somebody crunched the numbers of like, if you literally sat and for 24 hours straight read like 100 words per minute, it would take you like 4 days to read this bill. And they dropped it out. Like, good luck.
What bill was that? Oh, that's going to annoy me now. Yes. And I want to say that I was happy to see that people did make a big deal out of that, because they're like, there's no way that anybody read this cover to cover. It's literally impossible. You cannot read, even if you're a fast reader, there's no way.
Well, yeah, that was the one where I think it was even like both Rand Paul and AOC both came out simultaneously saying, no, I'm not going to vote on this. I haven't had a chance to even look at it. That's ridiculous.
One of the rare based AOC moments.
Right.
But I mean, that's why I like if all the Republicans just said, well, we're dumb and we couldn't read the bill and that we didn't have enough time or something like that, that would have been fine. But with the other kind of excuses, it's weird. And I kind of want to get all your takes with this. I'll go the opposite direction, starting with you, Lauren. My opinion on this has been like, okay, this is the moment that the paleo strategy with like libertarians just fucking died, because like literally all of these people that I was told are like the best in the GOP and our best hopes and everything literally just fucking stabbed us in the back. And I almost feel like that's why a bunch of people don't want to talk about this. Because it's like, ooh, a lot of the like, DeSantis type people and shit like that really aren't talking about this. And I'm like, So I kind of want to get your take on that, and then we'll go around the horn.
Yes, I completely agree. And I, kind of to the point that I want to say it was you, Magnus, we're making earlier. It's like, what do they have over these people that they're voting in favor of this? And whether it is a scare tactic, whether it, they don't want to be slaughtered, like how Massey was saying that he was anti-Semite, an anti-Semite rather, simply because of that one provision in there. There has to be other stuff buried in there that maybe these people don't want to be seen in a negative light, or canceled because they voted against it, or they just don't care. and they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to admit that they were wrong, or they're hoping that nobody will notice. And it seems like nobody is noticing and nobody's calling it out. So all of the woke bullshit saying, Massey's an anti-Semite. Okay, people are being loud about that, but nobody's saying shit about the red flag laws. And it leads me to circle back around to that conclusion where it's because it doesn't directly affect them. Maybe they're just not in the military and they just simply don't give a fuck. I feel like that's something that I see a lot with the GOP, is that they like to use the military and veterans as, pawns to further their own political, don't kneel for the anthem. That's disrespectful to the people that have died for the flag. Okay, well, where the fuck is that energy right now?
Right. Why did the highest military vote in history go to Ron Paul?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason, I want your take on that. Do you think this is the death of the paleo strategy, and why is particular people not talking about this in the LP?
According to OpenSecrets.org, just under 11,000 registered lobbyists have spent almost $2 billion in the first 6 months of this year.
I wonder how much moms demand action in every town.
Oh God.
The pharmaceutical industry has spent twice as much as the next highest spending industry. I'm just going to let out there, but there's when it comes down to the House, especially in the House, it's really bad in the House. There's a lot of quid pro quo, right? You support this bill, we'll support this bill, on something else. And it's dirty. It gets so grimy with that quid pro quo that people just they throw morality out the window because they got these little special lobby, the lobbyist backed little bills that they want passed, these little riders, this little grant here, little grant there. What can I get from my constituents so that they support me the next election?
Real quick, the random, I think it was 2 years ago, the omnibus bill that made it a felony to have Smokey the Bear pictured smoking a cigarette or some shit like that, and that got added to the fucking omnibus.
There's so many just stupid little, completely inconsequential things that get attached to these riders that they support because quid pro quo. I mean, if you don't have my back, I'm not going to have your back. That's the way it works in politics.
Yeah, and that makes sense for the GOP because the GOP are scumbags. But my big curiosity
They're all scumbags,
right? Is why? Yeah, absolutely. Is why major people in the LP are not having a shit fit over this. That's
because the LP is full of politicians. You could say, "Oh, we stand for liberty and this and that," but even Justin Amish, he had a quote last year, right after he came out of the LP, or came out as a libertarian and moved on. He had a tweet about working with people, and sometimes he said something to the effect of, "Sometimes you have to vote for things you don't want to vote for." And it blew up, and a lot of people got really ragged on him about not standing up for his morals. And he said something to the effect of wanting to get things done. So,
but he also said that was a big reason why he left Congress, because he couldn't get anything done as a libertarian. So it's kind of like, well, what is it?
I appreciate the attempt, Justin, but obviously you failed.
Totally. Right.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to put politics aside to the Damn Wars rally, right? It's one thing to put your politics aside to join on something like that, but it's another thing to put your politics aside for something that you don't truly believe in. That's just called selling out.
Right. And again, I'm about
$2 billion in the first 6 months.
Right. I'm about unity amongst the people. All politicians get deported to the moon. Period.
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
And that's exactly, when I was on the End of Damn Wars live stream, I think I mentioned that the whole reason that I became an anarchist was because I was part of the GOP. I was working with the GOP locally, and I went to a closed door meeting at one of the local GOP leaders' houses where we talked about how we were effectively going to use the GOP to influence local elections where they're not supposed to be. Or they're all supposed to be nonpartisan, and how we were going to do that secretly, and then that they were going to use me to run against Jennifer Billings. And then when I voiced the fact that I was mostly a libertarian, I got told, well, sometimes you need to check your politics at the door, and immediately shut out of the rest of the meeting. So like immediately I was like, oh, okay. All right. I see what's going on. And that's what started to wake me up. That turned me into a libertarian, and from there into an anarchist. Cause 6 months later.
Right. So I guess, yeah, Jason answered it. So same question to you. We've kind of covered why the GOP are scumbags multiple times, but what is your theory of why, like, fuck it. I'm naming names. I don't care. We're going full gloves off here. Like,
I love it. Full send.
Why is David Smith? Well, Dave Smith said nothing about this. Why is fucking like Zuby and like all these like big libertarian figures? No one has said fucking anything about this.
We're not going to say anything because by saying something, by bringing this up, by saying, hey, this is wrong. One, they're running the risk of people accusing them that they support the military. And that they're pro-military and therefore pro-war and all of this other stuff, which is a load of horseshit. That isn't what it is at all. But that's I think that's the one big scare that's happening, is they don't want to seem like they're like, oh, but the military, and then, oh, you support those baby killers. Like, they don't want to deal with that, and so they're trying to avoid it. And two, I think it's that it was the NDAA. So they just didn't feel like they needed to pay attention to it. They felt like they didn't need to look at it because they're like, yeah, I know what's in there. And so they're not even looking at what's being added because this is a renewal. You should be paying attention, but they're not gonna, because right now, so many people are so hyper focused on the stupid culture war thing. And they're not looking at where the real war is actually happening, where your freedoms are being picked off bit by bit by bit by bit by bit by the people who have names and addresses.
Yeah, and it's just wild to me because like I said, when I first brought this up, it kind of drew a lot of attention from people. My first post about it, they're like, "Oh, I never heard about this," and then I'm like, "Yeah, fuck Florida," and they're like, "Oh, how could you say fuck Florida and blah blah blah?" And then I posted the image of every single Republican from Florida voting for this bill, and everybody went silent, and I was like, "Oops."
How about that?
Well, it's because
it's giving me Obama vibes. It's giving me Obama vibes of like, oh, well, we know there's a lot of dirty things there, but we need to just be really quiet. And we need to support Florida and support DeSantis until this is all over. And it'll make all the scary socialists and the kids with the black hoodies go away. It's like,
well, it's golden calves for them. The GOP, there's so many people in the GOP that increasingly I've seen so many people who claim to be libertarian, claim to be anarchists, like rah-rah-rahing. And so when all of a sudden they all show their true colors, well, now it's going to embarrass you if you admit that happened. If you point attention to the fact that happened, now you're embarrassed. And now suddenly the emperor no longer has any clothes and we all see it. So they're going to try and avoid that so that their nice little golden calf gets to sit on its little pedestal and they can pretend that everything's peachy keen as the world burns around them.
Because, yeah, the video on this channel that has the most views is me fucking pointing out that Ron DeSantis worked at Guantanamo Bay. And people really didn't like me pointing that out. People got real mad at me for pointing that out. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, bro. And yeah, now, like, oh, people are still coping of like, oh, well, this was the House, DeSantis has nothing to do with that. And I'm like, oh, his entire party of his entire state, nothing to do with it at all. This is a Trump situation where it's DeSantis alone on a hill and all of the Republicans hate him in Florida. No, no, come on, people.
Governors traditionally run the parties in their states, just like presidents traditionally run the parties nationally. I mean, yeah, there's other leadership, but whoever's actually in that position of power, they kind of get an awful lot of say and get to direct things. That's the reality of politics. Yeah. So, like when Scott Walker was in power here in Wisconsin, he pretty much steered the way the Republican Party was going to go. That's what happened. So you can't tell me that DeSantis wasn't well aware of what was going on and wasn't perfectly capable of steering things the way that he wanted them steered.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, obviously, the worst pirate in history, Dan Crenshaw, voted for it happily.
Of course he did.
And then defended it. And then turned around and claimed he had never voted for a red flag law, and then got fucking dragged because that tweet on the internet will never go away of, don't worry, guys, this is a Republican version of a red flag law. I'd almost argue that's worse because then
Right.
I'm gonna get my door kicked in just for that. Like, what do you
Right.
mean?
It's a kindler, gentler, more civil rights conscious version of a violation of your civil rights.
Right. Oh my God.
Don't worry, guys. It's tyranny driving in the slow lane. Don't worry, guys. You'll be fine.
It's
Right,
fine.
what was that? Well, the good old Michael Malice quote is the GOP are progressives driving the speed limit.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, and they've been that for a very long time. I mean, that's the reality. It's why I always laugh at the myth of the party flip, because the reality is, no, there hasn't been a difference in those two parties in a very, very, very long time.
Which also, by the way, I didn't know if you know this, seeming this is kind of relevant to you. You're in Wisconsin, right?
Yep.
6 days ago, they just introduced a red flag law for your state.
Yep. I've already written both of our senators. Pfaff, or the congressman for here, and Pfaff, he just sent me a form letter, which doesn't really surprise me. Billings, ironically, my prospective, the rival in the race that I wound up not being part of, at least took the time to write it, but very clearly didn't pay any attention, because she just went on and on about how, well, guns without serial numbers are already illegal. And I'm like, you didn't read what I wrote you at all, did you? You didn't pay any attention to my point that it actually outlaws home built firearms. And like, she just completely didn't read it. She did say, though, in closing, she was like, well, it might, I'm sure it'll comfort you to know, kind of snarky. I'm sure it'll comfort you to know that because of who's supporting this, who's sponsoring it, it has virtually no chance of even getting out of committee or ever seeing a vote.
But that's what we said about red flag laws nationally.
Hey,
that's what people do not understand. I got into this argument way back when the lockdowns first started, that all of American politics and American law and UCMJ and everything is based off of precedent. The moment something happens, you can then easily make it happen again.
Yes.
It's the case across the board, which is why this was the fucking hill to die on. Okay, you find a way to vote no for this.
It's why so many people refer to the '94 assault weapons ban, right? Because that happened. It happened nationally, 10 years, right? Well, it didn't fucking change anything, right? And it sunsetted. But they still point to it as, oh, look, it's legal. The government can do it. Look, see, they've done it. Like, no, fuck you.
Well, yeah, and like this particular law actually has a precedent in I don't remember exactly what it is, but there's actually a law about nuclear material, and that the federal government can force civilian authorities to intervene in the transport and obtainment of nuclear material, and that law has been on the books since 1954, I want to say. But that's still a precedent that's sitting there that is allowing them to then point at that and go, well, but you guys are fine with that one. What's the problem with this?
You, a sane, rational individual watching this, will be like, how do you draw a line from nuclear materials to kicking in Uncle Jib's fucking front door because he posted something crazy on Facebook? Welcome to government.
Right.
Yes. I want to make a call out real quick. Kitty Bat Sasha commented on YouTube, and she says, so many libertarians are perfectly fine with authoritarianism against people they don't like. Yes. So many people, they would rather, they hate the culture war. They hate socialism. They hate communism. They hate all these fucking taglines more than they hate the government, imposing their will on everybody. So they fight the culture war instead of fighting the government.
And the culture war stuff blew up the moment this vote started happening, which I was like, that's another fucking put my tinfoil hat on. Like, whoa, there's giant wars. Giant wars on Liberty Twitter about wokeism. The moment a red flag law fucking passes, the moment that fucking they're trying to dishonorably discharge the military, and the moment that we give a fuck ton of money to Israel again. Country's totally not tits up right now. The economy's not full helicopter money, but we're still just dumping fucking money to Israel, and nobody's talking about it.
Well, yeah, and it's and I think what the problem too is that it's kind of like the myth of a buffer state, right? Like think about Mongolia and China and Russia, right? Like everybody talks about how safe Mongolia is because Russia will never invade Mongolia because China would respond and vice versa. But the reality is if one of them chooses to, yeah, they may tear each other apart, but they're doing it in your yard. So you are still caught in the crossfire. The reality is that a lot of people look at this and they look at it and go, well, authoritarians are destroying other authoritarians. Let's let them eat each other. Who cares? The problem is the only reason that they're the ones that they're attacking is because they're the only ones who actually stand a chance of fighting back. So you are just sitting here with you are irrelevant to them, but all of the laws that they're doing to counteract each other and fight each other are also being enforced on you. So you should still care.
Right.
Yeah, it shifts the Overton window. And as Magnus said, it sets the precedent.
Yes.
So people go, oh, look, it was enforced on the military. Oh, look, there's ex-military among the civilians. Oh, guess we have to impose it on the civilians now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Precedent.
I mean, just like the Patriot Act. Same shit.
Yeah, like we have a red flag. We have red flag law here in California. And
thankfully, no one can seriously own guns there. So you're good.
Yeah, that's exactly how that works. there are things I won't talk about online because we do have a red flag law here, and it's just it's so you read every single day you read about red flag laws and things happening here in California, and it's fucking disgusting. It really is. It gives me like this knot in the pit of my stomach that it's just like this is not fucking right, and yet so many people are okay with it.
Yeah, and that's like
that bothers me.
I made it very clear that this is the hill to die upon. Like if you're a gun owner, if you're a 2A advocate, if you're a natural rights person, I don't care.
Oh, I'm ready to turn this molehill into a mountain, die on fucking mountain.
Right. Seriously, because this is the hill to die on. Because I made the argument, and I think all y'all will agree once I lay this out, that I would almost prefer Australia-style mandatory buyback to red flag laws. I think red flag laws are worse because in a buyback, the cops notify you and you have time to deal with it and you can hand over your guns and not die. A red flag warrant, all of a sudden at 3 a.m., the fucking dog's yelping, the front door is getting kicked in, you're getting flashbanged.
I don't want to be
and that's not to say that I obviously not the fucking guy to advocate for mandatory gun confiscation, but to put it into perspective of how bad red flag laws are, they are worse than mandatory gun confiscation.
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
If you have any understanding of no-knock warrants, it's the same concept, really. If not worse, because you're dealing with firearms, so they're going to be expecting some sort of mentally unstable person. And now, mind you, this is something that I did look up, and on the subject of like mental illness and things like that. If you go to a mental health professional, did you know that they have to diagnose you with something in order to get paid out by insurance?
Not only that, but here with our red flag law, they have mandatory reporting.
Yep. Yep.
So that HIPAA, woo!
Yeah, what is she doing for you? Nothing.
Yeah, I love when people bring that up about the vaccine mandates and stuff, and they're like, "But isn't that a violation of HIPAA?" Are you kidding me? Do you think that law has mattered in decades?
Yeah, no. Bro. Like one of my ex-girlfriends worked in Farmington Hills here at a company that's its whole thing was to take paper medical records, encrypt them, and then upload them to the internet. And their whole thing was like data security and stuff like that. And the whole time she'd tell me like, yeah, we have like cops in there like every other day to like pull a record or like passing over things to the FBI and shit like that. It's like, and that's just medical records, nothing else. There's nothing to do with psychiatric, anything. This is literally raw data from doctors in the hospitals, and the police were in there constantly. So what do you think's gonna fucking happen, people?
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm so hype and angry just because it's like we should be freaking the fuck out. This should be like well, yeah. As much shit is like injustifiably that Twitter like erupted when Biden did the vaccine mandate. We like the gun community and the liberty community and everything should be that pissed about this. And it's like maybe a few hundred of us in a corner screaming into the fucking void while people tweet about like whether or not progressivism has a place in the Libertarian Party.
Old man yells at cloud.
Yeah, it's the same. We could tie it to like the Johnny Hurley thing, right? Johnny Hurley stopped a mass shooter, saved people's lives, get shot in the back, well, technically in the ass. The bullet didn't come out, so he painfully and slowly bled to death because the police shot him from behind without warning. There's like a dozen people tweeting about it.
Yep.
I saw maybe 4 or 5 posts on Facebook.
Yep. It drives me mad. Like the things we need to worry about. And especially now, dude, like I you know, we're getting close towards the end of this, so we'll slowly start wrapping up with topics. But to finish this off, like especially now, the culture war shit is so irrelevant and needs to become so irrelevant because mother of God, do you see what is going on outside? Okay. A bag of apples is $10 at my grocery store. I spent $50 to fill up my fucking 4-banger Honda. Like we're full helicopter.
There's 66 cargo ships sitting off the coast of California right now that can't be unloaded because of worker shortages and COVID protocols.
We're low on doctors. We're low on airplane pilots. We're low on
plumbers
and electricians.
New York is about to fire 72,000 healthcare workers over the COVID mandate, and are expected to replace it with 2,600 National Guard.
Yeah. Oh yeah, what was it? Massachusetts, the National Guard are driving the school buses because they can't get anybody to drive the fucking school buses.
This is exactly the standing army thing that the founders of the United States were really, really worried about. And they're backdooring it in, and people are cheering.
Yeah. Guys, I just had a fucking epiphany. If they're sending the National Guard in to fill these worker shortages and they're trying to pass a red flag warrant on the National Guard.
Take 2 minutes and Google VA medical care.
Yeah.
That's the standard that you're getting with the National Guard.
Probably just having to deal with the VA would drive me crazy enough to get red flag.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I live in Wisconsin, and I'm actually in La Crosse, which means that I'm only 45 minutes roughly from Toma, and the Toma area VA is the one that made national headlines because it infected people with HIV because it wasn't sanitizing dental equipment.
Wow. I mean, if you just look at the number of people that have committed suicide in the parking lot of the VA hospitals, like that's what you're getting when you put the government in charge of anything.
That's the other thing I want to bring up real quick. You mentioned the suicides.
Yeah.
Right? This military red flag bill is supposedly to stop military suicides.
Yes.
Right. 22 a day. That's what they tell you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mentioned in one of the earlier articles that I read, it said that 197 military members commit suicide with a firearm. 22 a day, 197 in a year use a firearm. It's an NDAA, which is a military funding bill. So, but like 4 times as many war on terror veterans have committed suicide since 9/11 than have died in combat since 9/11.
Yeah. Well, and you know, part of the reason for that is because we're all scared to go get any treatment for any PTSD because they'll take our fucking guns away.
Right. Exactly. Also, I do. I don't know if anybody listening has heard of holdmyguns.org. It's a really, really great organization where if somebody is having a mental health crisis and you have firearms, they will hold your firearms for you in a safe spot until you are feeling okay. So I think the cops. Exactly. Instead of having your wife and your children and yourself and your dog all killed, they will hold your firearms for you. So I feel like, why isn't there more of an emphasis on something like that? And do you really think that somebody that has served in the military is completely comfortable being around firearms? Do you think denying their right to bear arms is going to help them if they're in a crisis? Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, also you got some fucking U.S. Marine that's on the verge of blowing his brains out, and all of a sudden fucking 20 SWAT officers bang on the door. That's a recipe for fucking disaster.
Right.
That's a recipe for fucking disaster.
Just throw it out there, Andrew. Say what you did in the military real quick.
So I was a Ranger. I was third group. I was a private military contractor. saw combat on multiple continents, 3 official combat deployments, and 3 Purple Hearts.
Wow.
Yeah. What happens if somebody bangs on your door at 3 a.m.?
Oh, my entire, so I have a 2-bedroom apartment. At no point in this entire 2-bedroom apartment are you more than 3 steps from a loaded weapon.
Yes, so that's not going to go
So-
well. And again,
Right.
Again, and then you got to consider how the media is going to spin this. Let's say this passes. Let's say this passes the Senate because we were told it was never going to pass the House, and now we're telling them to trust them a plan with the fucking GOP in the Senate, which is even worse than the House. There's not a senator worth wiping your ass with in the fucking GOP. Like, goddamn. So let's say it passes that. And then this goes into fucking effect. And then people start getting their doors kicked in. And then the media runs out and says the thing that, the Department of Homeland Security already has U.S. veterans put as domestic terror threats to be surveilled. All of a sudden the news, wow, there's just dozens of shootouts with veterans and the police. This is why we need gun control.
Yep.
Well, yeah, like I said, like I said a while ago on here, I point out, I think it's meant to cause exactly the shootouts and the problems that are going to happen. It's to push that so you can point at it and you can go, you see what we were saying? Look at how terrible this all is. See, we need to do something about this. We need to get these guns out of the hands of these people that aren't in the military and actively doing anything. And how ridiculous is it to consider that you could theoretically come back from a combat zone carrying a machine gun and then within a few days of getting home have your door kicked in and your own weapons confiscated.
Yeah. Yep. And I really do. I agree. I think it is a big attempt to vilify particularly combat veterans and to make you all seem like, everybody is all, I mean, my husband is also a combat veteran and he was a combat weapons instructor as well. So you're going to tell me that motherfucker shouldn't be allowed to own a gun? Like, are you kidding me? It's insane.
He's probably more well-trained than half your police force.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's okay that they just go out and kill everybody on a traffic stop. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and again, since Maryland voted in their red flag law, October 1st, 2018, they have granted 998 extreme risk protective orders, which is what they call it, which is 8.2 orders per 100,000 residents. Only Florida has used it more. People don't know. Florida has red flag laws.
Yep.
Motherfucker, bro, this is literally me shit on Florida Day. Yeah. So fucking there, I think there's like 7 people have died in a shootout or some almost shootout, like in the Duncan Lemp case, because Duncan would have got up and shot at them if he would have been able to get out of his fucking bed because he's Duncan, but it didn't happen. But yeah, there's been like 8 to 9 people have died, and almost every single one of those, the cops went hot immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what do you think this is gonna? What do you think this brings? Whatever. It's ridiculous.
But it's gonna save lives.
If we can save just one life.
You see every day on social media some police department posing with the firearms or posing with the drugs they took from people. Their proud smiles, their shiny badges, armed up like fucking Army Rangers. They're all about it. They're not gonna say no to this.
They get off on it.
The police aren't going to be like, well, no, that guy's a military veteran. We're not going to enforce this order. No, they're going to hop in the fucking in the MRAP that they got from a military surplus 1033 program, drive over to the military guy's house, kick in his fucking door, shoot his dog, flashbang his kid, like they did to Bo, and shoot people. That's what they fucking do. They're fucking animals. They're fucking animals because. Sorry, I don't want to get you.
Well, when I got arrested,
no Fed posting on YouTube.
Oh. when I got arrested a few years ago, so that's been almost 14 years ago when I got arrested, because people like to lie. When I got arrested, the cops, I was at work and like just sitting there, and I got escorted out by a cop. When I got to the cops, 8 of them rushed me and grabbed me and handcuffed me. One of them thanked me for my cooperation. I laughed. I was like, oh, you know who I am. Okay. And then as I get walked out, there are 10 more cop cars sitting outside. I am unarmed and I am at work. and they are deploying that many cops just for little old me.
Yeah, because
for disorderly conduct and a dissuade from reporting.
I think it was Texas I think it was like 2-3 months ago where they rolled up on a guy for possession of cocaine and marijuana. Okay, this is what we're working with here. They roll up in a pickup truck with 6 fucking SRT officers in the back of it. This guy's sitting in his car in the driveway. They jump out, fucking run up to his car, tell him to stop. He backs up and then drives away. And as he's driving away, they put 25 rounds in the back of his fucking car and kill him over a bag of marijuana and cocaine. So again, those cops, red flag orders, ex-US military.
Cops across the river from me in Vacaville shot I think it was like 17 rounds into a car because the guy wouldn't open his window because he passed out in the drive-thru.
I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah, seriously, it's and again, this is who we're going to entrust with this of all fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
That's why if
Mm-hmm.
because when I first heard I was like panic mode, and then I heard, oh, it's just the military, and I'm like, okay, that sucks, but at least that's like army bases, and that's going to be done under the USMJ and all of that, and like, okay, that's a little better because you're going to have soldiers policing soldiers. And then I was like, but obviously still awful, but I was like,
no, it's
cops, and it's like, fuck.
It's cops. The bill specifically says civilian enforcement.
Well, yeah, and remember too that most Air Force bases now actually use civilian cops on base. They don't actually have MPs. That's and
they're guarding
most.
Gitmo.
Well, yeah, well, yeah,
work.
and they're guarding. I mean, but we also have we're seeing that increasingly on places like Benning and Bragg and Hood, and we're seeing that increasingly where they're going to civilian law enforcement on bases. Which is also why this is talking about civilian law enforcement, is because that way they don't need to worry that maybe the MPs they're going to go send to go red flag this guy are his friends. Now they have people who don't care, who are totally willing to gung-ho go in there with a bunch of guns, even on base.
Yep. And I mean, I'm going to pull up her name because this is an important story. And I think real people need to go back and look at this case, because this was one of the earliest ones and this was the worst ones, and we kind of forgot about it. I just want to get her name right before I fuck this up. 1 second. So Ayanna Jones. Okay, people may not have heard of this one, but in Detroit a few years back there was I think it was a 7-year-old girl named Ayanna Jones. They no-knock raided this house in Detroit, kicked the door in, threw a flashbang, and then the officer entered the room and immediately fired a bullet out of his MP5 and shot this little girl in the head. So, right behind that officer was an AMC film crew, because this was a reality fucking TV show. They almost aired this fucking episode until Detroit borderline rioted over it. They were going to put that shit on TV. They shot a 7-year-old girl on the couch in her fucking sleep. No knock. Even if you're not a fuck the blue person like me, you got to understand. And Andrew can protest this as a military person. The fatal funnel, the breaching into a building, is the most clusterfuck thing that can ever happen in a combat situation. There is no way to make it go smoothly. There's no amount of training. There's no amount of anything. It's bad enough when it's a bad guy on the inside, good guys on the outside. When there's maybe a bad guy and then a bunch of children, there's no way to make that fucking go smoothly.
Well, yeah. When we did door kicker shit, I mean, we call it door kicker shit, but you don't really kick doors. What you generally do is you either throw a breaching charge on there if you know there are people that you're after on the other side or are supposed to be on the other side, or use a hellhound round, which is far nastier than I could properly describe. Look it up and you will see just how bad a hellhound round can be if you are in the room on the opposing side of that door when that round hits that door. We do that. You use extreme violence and immediate violence to get through that choke point. And that's just a basic principle. And on top of that, I mean, I helped do some training for the Reno, Nevada SWAT team. So like military contractors are being brought in on a regular basis to train SWAT teams, to teach them how to do these things the way that we learned how to do them through trial and error in combat zones.
The warrior cop ethos, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. So you're taking people who are learning from guys like me, who are not somebody I wouldn't trust me to enforce laws in a civil way. Are you kidding me? There's no way I would trust myself to do that. So like you're looking at people.
I'm in
like
the Telegram
me.
chat with you. I wouldn't trust you either.
Yeah, like
I've seen some of the stuff you post.
I have a pretty dark sense of humor.
Yeah, dirty man.
But I wouldn't trust me to do that. And like, and we're the people that are training these cops how to go in and do these things, how to breach rooms, how to clear rooms, how to do these things. The one thing I will say is that every single SWAT team, they always look, they never see. Just saying. When they sweep rooms, look, never see.
Which is probably why they shoot fucking people in the fucking head all the time.
Yeah, because that was something when I trained them that I harped on them endlessly, where I'm like, you guys are looking at things, but you're not seeing anything. Just because your eyes are pointing at a thing doesn't mean you're actually seeing it.
You're checking the dots with your head so your instructor doesn't scream at you, but you're not actually acknowledging any of the information.
Yeah. So like so for them, they just fire because, well, I'm not actually going to look at any of this. I'm just going to fire at it and assume that it's probably a threat. Who knows? And I mean, like for us, like we had a lot of like the patches, you know, in t-shirts and stuff. They kill them all, let God sort them out, stuff like that. And I am seeing those patches. There was a photo I saw the other day of a SWAT team member in a stack on a raid with that patch on his sleeve.
Yeah, the military.
Yeah, there was a shooting not long ago where the guy had "You're fucked."
Yeah, that was here in Arizona.
Yeah,
that was in Mesa.
That was Daniel.
Was that
Daniel Shaver?
Daniel Shaver.
Yeah, that was Daniel Shaver.
Yep, he had "You're fucked" on his fucking dust covers.
Yes, and nothing happened.
Yep, and again, that's another one. Same with the Johnny Hurley thing. Thaddeus Russell interviewed his widow and was like, reached out to me, and he's like, Magnus, can you get a protest going? Like, she's gonna be out in front of the courthouse. The case is coming up. I raised fucking hell on Twitter about it. I posted the address. I posted everything. No one.
Yeah,
no one.
What like
Daniel Shaver is in the fucking intro of this video. No one showed up. So it's like, bro, like what the fuck is going on? The culture war shit, man. That's all they can think about. They want to talk about.
It's all a distraction.
Yeah, it's about the low-hanging fruit, though. People don't actually want to be adversarial. They're very conflict averse inherently, so they don't want to be adversarial. They don't. You have to train that out of them. I mean, I had to have that trained out of me. Lots of guys.
I don't know what's going on in the. I don't know what's going on in the chat right now, but
I cannot read that.
I cannot read it. Someone's speaking fucking unknown from Pokemon in my chat.
I think that's Cambodian.
I hope that doesn't say something fucking awful and get me banned, but we'll see.
Yeah. But like people, they don't want to have heavy conflict. They don't want to have ongoing conflict with people. So they go after this nice low hanging fruit that is only going to cause just a tiny bit of conflict.
Yeah,
just enough to keep their life interesting.
Yeah, that's why we have untested rape kits and like 900,000 people in jail for cannabis.
Yep, exactly, fucking exactly. And it's just really like that's the thing people have to know, and that's why I'm so mad that Rand Paul's bill died. Is like the war to end no-knock raids is so important, and the reason why they do not want to end no-knock raids is because it allows all sorts of fucked up shit. Because when you take this to court, like if a cop like ran in a backyard and the perp was there and there was a kid's party going on or something like that, and he shot a little girl, it's not likely because it's still the police, but there's a decent chance that cop's gonna get in fucking trouble. But in a no-knock raid, they could flash bang a fucking 2-year-old, kick the door in, shoot 2 dogs and an old lady, and they'll be like, well, you know, we breached the house and it's a chaotic environment and things happen, and none of those officers are going to face anything.
Well, that's literally happened. There's the in Tennessee, I think. There's that grandfather who was in his living room when they kicked in a door and stood up and like yelled at them, and so they fired and they killed him. And nothing ever happened because his grandson who was living with him was like a drug dealer.
Yep.
It's the same concept as a cop pulling you over for a busted taillight, and then they have probable cause. Exactly. They have probable cause, and now you're dead because it's okay. They had probable cause. It's a fail safe, so they can do whatever the fuck they want, and it's not going to stop.
Right. And I mean, like in like, it just, you know, two points really quick. Like the swatting, the thing that like swatting was a huge thing in police departments, had to completely fucking retool their dispatch system to deal with it because they were sending cops to people's like that should tell you that should not happen in a fucking free country, bro.
BLM activists in LA just got swatted for the 3rd time.
Yep. It's insane. It's insane.
The fact that swatting is a thing is highly problematic in itself.
That exists at all, because you shouldn't be able to do that, because like riot cops should
Again,
not be showing up in a Bearcat with fucking riot shields and rifles.
Yeah, again, no proof necessary, no conviction, no due process. We're gonna kick in your door because somebody called and said, you did something bad.
Yep.
That's no different than this red flag law.
Yep.
They're Go.
Yeah, and to bring up something, because the documentary died, it kind of sucks I bring it up now, but there was a documentary called Puppy Side.
Oh, I wanted to see that get made so badly.
No idea why it didn't get made. I'm almost convinced they fucking assassinated the person that was making it, because they disappeared off the face of the universe.
Oh shit.
So, but I think the statistic is like 93 dogs a day or something like that are shot and killed by cops. So again, red flag warrant on your your disabled veteran with his fucking service dog, and you shoot his service dog in front of him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see. Puppysidedb.com.
Yeah,
the Puppy Side database project.
Yeah, the last update on the GoFundMe was 4 years ago, I think. So yeah, they just disappeared off the face of the earth.
Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, and like how many veterans that have service dogs can really survive without them, and keep in mind that they're considered property, and that if the police destroy your property in the course of a lawful warrant, they don't have to replace it.
God, they destroyed that one guy's house in Colorado over a shoplifter.
I remember that. The shoplifter.
Yeah, they tore a hole in his house.
They tore like 8 holes in his house and blew out every window with the flashbangs.
There was that other
shoplifter guy sued, and the police got qualified immunity, and then the city of Boulder's like, oh, they got qualified immunity, we're not paying for shit.
Destroyed his fucking whole ass house. There was another lady, I think it was in Billings, Montana, if I remember correctly, where they were trying to pursue a carjacking suspect, and he ran to this lady's house. She wasn't home, and they shot the fuck out of this house. Like, if you look at the pictures, it literally looks like Baghdad. Like, this was like some fucking Al-Qaeda strong point, and the U.S. military just opened up on it. Shot the fuck out of this house. Didn't have to pay this lady a cent. Well, there was a guy who tried to break into someone's car, failed, and then ran away. So watch us put 500 rounds into your fucking trailer.
Well, this isn't new. New. Consider like where I go camping up in northern Wisconsin is right near Manitowish Waters, which is where Little Bohemia is located. And if you're familiar with the Outlaws of the 1930s, Little Bohemia is where John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson were cornered by the FBI. They wound up murdering a pair of poor guys who were just driving down the driveway. And then Nelson and Dillinger, they get away, and the FBI proceeds to simply rake the hell out of this little roadhouse for the next like 15 minutes and put so many bullet holes in it. It's still preserved. Like, you can go and you can see all of the bullet holes all over the entire thing. They even put new glass on either side of the windows that are blown out, and you can see the bullet holes on the inside walls are all coated in bullet holes from so many bullets coming through the windows and things. Like, and they just unloaded on this house. And the guy who ran Little Bohemia, who owned it, basically just had to turn it into a tourist attraction to try and recoup all the money that he was losing from the fact that his poor roadhouse had been turned into a war zone.
Yep. And no knock raids and qualified immunity. Son of a bitch. I mean, look, you can, we'll get briefly very spicy on this before we kind of go to our closing topic. But another example of that is Mr. Dorner's case. Mr. Can't Corner the Dorner. When they burned down some random person's fucking property to get him, and then shot what was it, 2 separate vehicles that just happened to look like his vehicles.
They didn't even look like it.
25 rounds or something like that into the back of that truck with the 2 Mexican cleaning ladies.
Yeah, and hit one of them in the leg and one of them in the arm or some shit.
And those vehicles didn't even actually match the description of his vehicle. They actually looked significantly different. They weren't the same make, model, color, nothing.
And again, a little piece of because I'm very familiar with the Dorner case, which probably says a lot about me, but I digress. But yeah, that guy that owned that barn that they burnt down, not a penny from the government. Not a penny.
Oh, they don't care. They don't care.
No.
Even, and this is not this didn't even make the news. Last year, I'm sitting there, we had our windows and our doors open because it was really nice out, and we're watching TV, and all of a sudden I hear the loudest sound I've ever heard in my life. Like, not much scares me. That scared the fuck out of me to the point where I was like trembling afterwards. Our whole building shook. Apparently, one building over, a lady got stabbed by her boyfriend and he fled the scene. Well, SWAT comes and they throw a fucking flashbang in the apartment where this woman is laying there bleeding out, and they bust down her fucking door. They take her out, and all they do is put some caution tape over the front door, leave everything busted open. Now, mind you, I live like right outside of Phoenix, so anybody could fucking come in and take whatever they want. And they just left it for days. They don't give a fuck. And that's just hyper local, like one case out of how many?
My screen door is still broken from the anonymous welfare check that somebody put on me. Thank God I wasn't fucking home. Just saying. Thank God I wasn't fucking home.
Hold on. The Dorner thing, they were looking for a gray Nissan Titan. The women were driving a blue Toyota Tacoma. And they had more than 100 rounds fired at them, and a 71-year-old woman was shot twice.
Oh my God.
Which again,
they don't care.
Now that's perfect because to kind of all wrap this up, because I usually only go an hour and a half. We're getting there. People might be like, oh, well, what all does this have to do with the red flag thing? Blah, blah, blah. This is to lay out a case for people that you have a justice system that they just flipped upside down, being enforced by civilian police officers that shoot up houses randomly, break people's shit randomly, kill their fucking dog, are totally not equipped to deal with a mental health situation.
Flashbang victims.
Right. Being sent, like police officers that are not equipped to deal with a mental health situation, being sent to a mental health crisis to take firearms away from ex-US military.
Yep.
You see the problem here.
To quote Rob Hustle, this is what happens when you call the cops.
Yeah, I freaking love that music video.
Yeah, and so just kind of to wrap it up, last kind of closing things. I guess just how y'all feel about this. How do we get people to give a fuck about this, and what the fuck do we do? I don't know. Just kind of closing feelings. I'll start with you, Andrew. We'll go clockwise.
Oh man, enraged is a word that seems to fall short. I mean, because I'm one of those people that, a few years ago I could have been a victim of this, like very easily, and I have a lot of friends that are still in, and a lot of them that are starting to understand what I've been saying for a few years, and that's going to put them at risk of this.
Yeah.
And by simply agreeing, by simply watching our podcast, by simply watching this podcast things, they're going to be put at risk of a red flag. And I mean, you're talking about people that you love, people that you care about getting murdered because one guy was pissed off, and there's nothing they can even do about it. They don't have any chance to argue. They don't have any chance to say, no, they're a liar, nothing. They get no due process, no day in court, and everyone's just ignoring it. Everyone's just pretending this is okay. They're pretending other things are bigger issues. And it absolutely disgusts me, but not nearly as much as the GOP doing what they did. And what it reminds me of is what I keep bringing up constantly, which is you cannot change a corrupt system from inside that system.
Preach.
Yes.
Which by the way, just reminded me, and then I might have forgotten it. So damn, what was I about to say? Jason, you go while I try to remember it.
I'm really not surprised by this.
I got it before I forget it.
No.
By the way, people forgot, but that Facebook is partnering directly with the federal government to report extremist content. The federal government that hasn't got power, but got a lot closer than they've ever been to being able to report people's mental health, just partnered with Facebook. Anyways, as you were saying, Jason.
Just gonna leave that there.
I was gonna say that I'm not surprised. This is typical for those of us that have been paying attention. What angers me is not the government doing what they're doing. It's a lack of response in the quote liberty community. There's there's very few people in the liberty community that actually stand for liberty, right? There's so many people that they leave that left-right paradigm of the two-party system and come into the liberty community and then argue economic systems, which is just a continuation of left-right paradigm. So they get so locked up in this us against them ideology to the point where they idolize and they create these great men in their minds, such as DeSantis, such as Rand Paul, that they completely just manufacture boogeyman that don't like DeSantis, that don't like Rand Paul. So it becomes, again, this left-right paradigm. It becomes this great man boogeyman fallacy. And they're missing the whole fucking picture that while you're arguing about who said what, the government is over here doing shit that is 100,000 times worse than who said what on Twitter.
I you know how many times I was called a libertarian after that DeSantis video? Me.
Jesus Christ.
Me.
You got hate. You got hate for organizing in the damn wars.
Yeah.
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 Like literally.
Did you get any of that, Lauren? Well, actually, I'll finish your point, Jason, and then I'll ask you your take on this, and then I'll ask you that.
Core tenet of libertarianism in the damn wars. Magnus. Oh, we're having a march in the damn wars. Libertarians. Oh, I can't go to that because they have socialists there and Green Party. Shut the fuck up.
Shut the fuck up, challenge.
Actually stand for your moral values.
Yes. Yes, agreed.
Okay, Lauren, your take, your closing take, and then
you're good.
About the damn war shit.
Yeah. So one thing that anybody
you're probably
you're
probably the best for this because we've all bitched, but you're solutions oriented, and part of the question was what the fuck do we do about this? So
how did you know that's what I was gonna say?
Because I know you, Lauren. I'm in your brain.
And now you know that I'm a Korn fan, so you really know me. So yes, I agree. And something that somebody did, Alex Hatch left in the comments where she said, what can we do to fight red flag laws other than writing politicians? And I think that it is really important because anybody can sit here and complain all day long, but when it comes down to it, what are you actually doing about it? And what can be done about it? And I do think that other than writing politicians, protest, make it known, keep fucking talking about it. Don't let people forget, because you know what? Tomorrow some shit's going to go down on Twitter and everybody's going to look over there and they're going to be distracted by it. Keep fucking talking about it. Keep track of it. One thing that is my job as the second vice chair on the AZLP is to follow legislation. And sometimes things get stalled. I mean, if you look at the infrastructure bill, it's been stalled for like 5 or 6 fucking weeks. And then they all try to do a mad dash to push it through at the end. Keep up with this shit. Keep track of it. It's boring. It's exhausting, but keep track of it. And yes, keep writing your politicians before it even gets to any of them. Right. And you know what? One thing that is a really, really good tactic is if you can organize it. And now, of course, organizing anything, especially within the liberty movement, is like herding cats. But if you can organize, if you can organize like a drop where everybody writes a letter and everybody fucking sends it in on the same day, or everybody calls on the same day, and don't wait until the last fucking minute, because that's what always happens. And then time zones and everything. But before the deadline is up, do like have one day where you organize, everybody call your representative and just fucking flood their office and let them know, like, we're not going to forget about this. We are paying attention. We're watching you. You work for us, and let your voice be known. And I know it sounds so cliche, but go ahead.
Call out your elected representatives. Call out your elected representatives on social media.
Yes, I do it all the time.
Post.
Yes.
Oh, I'm the fucking specter of Matt Gates'
Yes.
account for the last week, bro.
Oh yeah,
that guy. I'm amazed he hasn't blocked me. He has to know my face by now, because literally under every single post, no matter what it's about, I'm like, what about them red flag laws, Matt?
Absolutely.
What about them red flag laws?
And even within the Libertarian Party too, if there's something that if you're in the LP, I know a lot of people aren't, but you can also write to the LNC and say, hey, I would like this to be, and I don't know that it's going to get you anywhere, but at least you are doing something, and you can say, hey, this is what I would like to see brought to the forefront, because this is in our platform. We are the party of principles. Where the fuck are those principles? Why do we just forget about them when it's not something that is cool to talk about, or is a hot trending topic. Who the fuck cares? And to the point that you were making, Magnus, about end the damn wars, that's one of our principles that is written in our platform. And why is it that we got fucking pushback within our own party? I personally didn't, but I know people did. Why are we getting pushback on that? It's insane.
Yeah, did you get anybody like personally going after you or whatever? I know that Colette got like fucking like death threats and shit, and then I got a bunch of death threats and shit, and other people. Yeah, the New York organizer got doxxed. Like,
I heard about that. Thankfully, I did not. And also, you're welcome, Alex. I just scrolled down in the comments and saw that. I did not, but it's insane. And I did feel a little bit. So I did mention it at a couple of our meetings, at our like state meeting and the Maricopa County meeting. And when I said that we were going to be working with the Green Party, it was kind of like crickets. And everybody, I was standing there and they just were looking at me. And I was like, listen, we've worked with them in the past, which, by the way, I was also called disingenuous because I said that we hadn't worked with the GP since 2007, but I'm just fucking stupid and I can't remember anything. And it was 2014. So before I get called disingenuous or, like I'm trying to be misleading here, let me just fucking clarify that. God I'm so sorry.
Because nobody has ever gotten anything wrong, Lauren.
I know.
That's what it is. You're flawed because you got one thing wrong. We have to cancel you.
Cancel.
Don't you
do that cute face. Don't do that cute face. Get out of here. That is a very cute face. But no, and that's the thing that frustrates the shit out of me right now. And it really makes me wish that FPC would get back to me. FPC, fucking hire me. I applied. You tagged me in the application. Because if I had the money right now, because I'm still broke as fuck from End the Damn Wars, and 2 weeks from now, I guess I'm announcing it now, we're going to Kalamazoo because we're going to go outside the courthouse where the Wolverine Watchmen trial is happening, and we're going to have a bunch of signs pointing out that the FBI are fucking terrorists. So I'm planning that.
12
Love it.
15, 12 to 16,
no,
like
it 10 of 14.
10 of 14. Yeah.
10 and 14 were feds. So yeah, we're gonna cover Lauren Reed. We're gonna cover fucking Daniel Baker, all like BLM and anti-fascist activists, like everyone the FBI is fucked over. The Muslim dude that they had a guy pretend to be a girl on Twitter and almost talk him into fucking blowing up an Arby's for jihad and Allah or some shit that happened in Michigan. We're gonna bring all that up. But to my point, I don't have money. And right now, I'm like one of the few. Shout out to Rocky Mountain Chaos on Twitter. He's the one who did the Johnny Hurley event. He's trying to do shit. Yeah. I don't have all the money in the world. Dude. Yeah, I don't have all the money in the world. I'm a broke motherfucker. I'm still trying to put these events on. This would be the moment to have huge open carry fucking protests like everywhere. Yes. This would be the moment. Mm-hmm. And if I had money and time, I'd be doing that. But I can't do that. So I need like the Liberty fucking community to get off their ass and do something about this, and nobody's talking about it, which is like pull my fucking hair out. But I digress. So I guess we'll go counterclockwise this way, starting with Lauren. Give your plugs where people can find you if you have anything coming up, anything you want people to know, blah blah blah.
Nah, I'm just a shitty person that I got a date wrong, so
Shut up.
I'm canceled. Yeah, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it is at Lauren_Liberty_. I don't know. I have a terrible memory, like I said. And we are working towards doing a second End the Damn Wars rally in December. I want to say December 11th was the date that was put forward. So we are working towards that. We're working on doing a bunch of stuff locally, probably a little bit more casual stuff, because like you said, it costs money. So if we could just get a bunch of people holding signs in front of a federal building, I'm cool with that. I'm working on doing a little bit more just like hit the ground running type of shit, less formal. So keep an eye on Arizona. That's what we'll be doing. Anybody's welcome to join. We had a guy from Texas come out to our last rally. So we're out there. We are out there. You just got to keep talking about it.
And before we go on, Jason, you did remind me. So yeah, December 11th, we are doing, I think in 4 or 5 locations across the country. We're going to be doing a mutual aid event, which is just going to be just, we haven't figured out a name for it, but something along the lines of like End the Damn Wars, help the poor, or something cheesy like that. Just something simple for Christmas to keep the energy going, keep people working together, teach libertarians how to do mutual aid.
Yes.
Motherfuckers need to learn, because
be about it.
Jesus Christ.
Yes.
You can't go to people and tell them you don't need the government to help you. And they're like, okay, who's going to help me? And then smoke bomb out of the fucking,
Yes.
no, stop
Yes.
doing that.
Yes.
So yeah, so I digress. So yeah, December 11th, we announced that in the damn wars. More information to come along.
Yes.
Jason, do your plugs. What's your name? Where can you find you on Twitter, YouTube, all that shit?
You guys can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under Jace Boothe, JASBOOTHE. I also am part of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion with Andrew. We are on all the major podcatchers, as well as on YouTube on the Voluntary Agrarian page. We're also on Odyssey and a bunch of other places. And I just want to throw out real quick. Today is the 10th anniversary of the drone bombing of Anwar al-Awlaki. He was a U.S. citizen born in New Mexico that was killed by a drone ordered by President Obama in Yemen. Yep. 2 weeks later, his son was killed in a drone bombing also. He was 16. He was born in Colorado.
Yep. This joy. Andrew, do your plugs, do your everything like that.
Yeah, so I'm on Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion, the podcast with Jason. And you guys should definitely check us out on all the aforementioned platforms. Also, I am on Twitter at Inked Anarchist, no E, Inked Anarchist. You can follow me on Twitter. You can also check me out on Instagram, Inked Anarchist. I've been banned from most other social media platforms. I'm on MeWe as Inked Anarchist. I do have my own YouTube page that I never update anymore.
Our last episode about Succession was a really good one. It's getting a lot of views.
Yeah,
So
we did. We just
out.
did an episode on secession, balkanization, state independence. So that's definitely a cool one. Magnus, you were on the one that we did on the Battle of Athens, which is also a very, very cool one. Some
That's
cool
where
history
Andrew
stuff.
tells his story about killing a bald eagle.
Yes,
one time
the bald eagle story.
Murder the symbol of freedom with 2 tons of speeding irony one time, and no one will let you forget it.
Yep, that's it. I mean, but you leave out the best part of the story, where a Native American tribe elder had to come out there and look at a man in full dress uniform driving a nice car with a dead bald eagle in the fucking
with the streak of blood across the uniform.
Not just a nice car. It was an 86 Camaro, a bright red 86 Camaro with an American flag bow tie in the back window, and I had a dying bald eagle while lodged in the windshield, which splattered my Class A's with eagle blood, and he laughed a lot.
I would laugh at you really hard.
Lauren is in disbelief.
I love this story.
I'll have to drop the link for you.
So you can watch it. But okay. Thank you to the however many people. We've had 20 viewers consistently this whole time. So thank God there's some fucking interest in this. Jesus Christ.
Chat was on fire too. They're all commenting a lot.
Thank you guys.
I'm glad people care about this. Again, like I said, Lauren said, if you can't make it out, if you can't organize, harass your fucking local politicians, send letters in, organize with your people, do all that political stuff. If you can. Get 5 people with fucking rifles, go to your fucking state capitol, stand out there with some signs with some pictures of people that died from fucking no-knock raids and red flag warrants, and let people understand this shit. If you can do that. Thank you for tuning in. I have no plans for next week. Maybe the 4 people that canceled on me this week can come on next week because it was a fucking adventure. But yeah, and I'll just be updating everybody on what's going on, and just appreciate y'all tuning in. So thank you, everybody. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Stay safe, stay free.
Peace.